Hi guys, Anne-Marie here with a double page scrapbooking layout today about flowers from our front beds this spring and summer. Today's video features a super quick and dirty hack for measuring your pattern paper blocks to fit your layout, and there's a timestamp below if you'd like to jump straight to that. All right, so here we go. So I'm curious, do you guys grow any flowers? Do they have any special connections for you? These lilies that you're going to see, so the white, the red, the yellow, the orange, all of the lilies they were originally grown by my late father-in-law. And it's nice, to still have them and every summer to, be reminded. At our old house, we had like peonies, and those were from my mom. And then we had irises also from my late father-in-law. And hopefully someday we'll have those here too, because it really is just a nice kind of little connection to a loved one. So I'm scrapbooking these today, and I have a little page kit, but I didn't have a background for it. So I ended up pulling out some just craft cardstock that was 8.5 by 11. And I kind of thumbed through some other flowery, summery stuff I had out, but none of it really worked. I just ended up coming back to the little page kit that I packed a few weeks ago and ran with it. So I went through a few different iterations on the photo arrangement, but this is where I ended up landing. I kind of spread the yellow out so that it was top and bottom, but also spread out. Same thing with the white flowers and same thing with the really deep red flowers. So that way I got a nice variety of color across the layout. They almost each made their own little visual triangle, but just kind of like a subtle thing. I'm not really using the visual triangle in that sense to like point out anything or focus on one thing, but just to kind of spread everything out. These were all collaged prints on two 3x4s onto a 4x6, and then I separated them so I could arrange them any way I wanted to. And I really like the look of something asymmetrical, so kind of more pictures on one side than on the other. So that's what I did here. I had 4 groups of photos and then 2 on the other side. And I'm just going to cut a strip of yellow down to fit within that. And so I'm using my fingernails there to notch where I want to cut. Just creasing the paper a little bit so I can get an exact custom fit because I'm lazy. And anytime I do like a paper, or a pencil mark, I can't ever get it away, like erased completely, I feel like. So notching it just works better for me. So that left me with this really pretty green paper. The flip side is blue with white flowers, and I wanted to use both sides. So I decided to cut some borders with the scallop die, and then I would back them. So with the other side, basically. So I cut several strips of this paper, and I'm going to run several through to get the borders. So you can see my little pile of scalloped borders there, and now I'm going to cut the flip side. So it's the same piece of paper. I'm going to cut that into strips that I can then use kind of as borders along the top and bottom, and then layer the strips on top. And I went a little overboard here. I'm still in 12 by 12 habits, so I still think of what I'm going to need for a 12 by 12 layout, and I'll cut and plan accordingly, and only to remember like, oh yeah, I didn't need all that. And I think I was able to do this with like only 2 or 3 strips instead of like the 5 that I cut or something. So, which is fine because I turned around and made cards with them. So it all worked out. So I ended up with this pretty little, very nice, clean, linear, kind of pulled in and tucked in layout. I like these. I like the tidiness of it, I guess. Probably because a lot of my life doesn't feel this tidy, right? And so now I need to figure out the title and the journaling. I think originally I planned on filling that yellow polka dot column with journaling, which would have made a lot of sense, and people with more patience than I would probably have done so, like done some really nice typed printed journaling, but our printer's a hassle to use, so I ended up not doing that. And I decided I'm going to focus on the embellishment block first. I had used my picker wheel and was trying to use those flower wood veneers, dies, and an embossing folder. So I got one of the new embossing folders that I recently had gotten from Spellbinders clearance, and decided I was going to emboss this bracket label shape spot to give it some texture, and then use that to build an embellishment cluster off of it. So I'm cutting a few of these, and because I just know that I also want to color it, and that can go wrong. And again, extras never hurt, because I'm gonna make cards with scraps. Like, that's what I've really been trying to do that. So I just cut as many as I could get from this one piece of cardstock, and next I'm going to dry emboss. I did mist these before I ran through, because yeah, that does give a really nice effect. So I'm trying to build that habit of misting before I dry emboss something. And I ended up with these 6 little panels that I could play with for this layout. So I think I should have gently rubbed a Versamark ink pad across my um, debossed or embossed labels, because that would have helped the chalk stick. But I didn't do that, and I decided to just kind of play with it and see how the chalk did on its own. And it was a really nice, subtle thing, which I think is okay. But if I had inked it with Versamark, the chalk would have stuck a little better, but it would also have been more vibrant. And I think that would have matched better with the rest of the layout. You know, the photos are very strong colors. I used some embellishments that were very strong colors. So, but it didn't look bad, you know. So I just built this up slowly, and I'll fast forward so you can kind of see where we ended with. I'm just tripping over my tongue a lot today, but you know what I meant. So here's kind of the finished little embellishment spot, and it's not perfect, but chalky never is. And I think that's fine, because even though my layout is very linear, the subject that I'm scrapping is literally organic, right? It's a living, breathing, messy thing. Gardening is never clean and tidy. So it's okay with me that it's looking splotchy and blurry, and I think that's fine. I did realize I wanted a mat for that bracket spot, so I cut just the larger size up out of craft. So there's a little separation between it and the layout. And again, since everything is so clean and linear on this, it tidies that up and makes it look a little bit more tailored. So now I'm going to kind of doctor up this little wood veneer. This was like a package that I got from Dollar Tree, and they aren't your typical light colored wood veneer. They're very dark. And so I decided, I didn't think I wanted a white flower, but I definitely wanted a white base to add another color onto, because otherwise it was probably going to look muddy and not quite be the color I wanted. So then I decided I wanted to make it match that yellow polka dot paper. So I'm just adding in some yellow until I get it to kind of that brighter yellow. And it'll kind of bring that back to that yellow pattern paper. So now I'm just going through and I'm going to pull out some flowers that I want to add to make an embellishment cluster. Got to use these flowers. I got a whole box of them and I don't feel like I use them enough. So I just pulled ones that really related to the colors of the layout, and I'm going to cut that green one down to be petals. Also started thinking about where the title's going to come into all of this. So I kind of start laying things out the way I think they might work, and then considering what letters I'm going to use, like what size and style. So I've got my letter stickers picked out. I start adding little brads to all of my flowers, because again, need to use those. So they're all going to have brads. So I get those all set up. I've cut my little flower down into green petals instead. And I'm going to poke my holes so I can push my brads through. So to do this, I just put a mouse pad under my layout, and my paper piercer pokes right through into the mouse pad. I just place that in the center of where I'm planning on placing the flower, and then I poke it through and split it on the other side. All right, so now I'm going to use some of my mini glue dots to attach those little green petals. and I'm going to put them in kind of a visual triangle around all, like the big center flower, just to draw attention in general to this whole embellishment cluster, and I'll build my title off to the left. So then it's time to do my journaling, and I decided to just handwrite next to some of the flowers, kind of where they came from. So I noted that all of the lilies were from our father-in-law, and I didn't write that next to every lily, but you know, like I added the azalea bush that kind of came with the house, and the flowers I got for Mother's Day, and that kind of thing. I noticed that if I was going to write that caption right there, it was going to compete with my title work. So I thought I'd better finish my title first and then kind of see what space I have left. So I'm just using that bloom where you're planted quote, which I've probably used before. But it was especially, I guess, important or whatever, or poignant to use it here because this is a new house for us, a new location to be growing these flowers. And we definitely kind of still feel like transplants in some ways. So I don't know, it just felt like a fitting quote. So I'm going to build that, and then I'm going to add the caption on the craft underneath so it doesn't compete with the title. So now it's time to add just a few little rhinestones. And again, I decided to use my colored rhinestones because I'm trying to use them up. I feel like my default is clear rhinestones. They're definitely the easiest to use, but I've got a huge stash of the colored ones, so I need to make an effort to really use them. So I picked them in, you know, the warm yellow, orange, red kind of color scheme, and I'm just going to do my usual where I mix up the sizes and colors into 3 little points. And that's the layout. So thanks so much for watching. I appreciate your time. If you enjoyed this video, please consider clicking the thumbs up or leaving a comment below. I'll see you Friday for the weekly wrap up, and I hope you have a scrappy, happy week. Bye.